Skylanders Academy! I forgot this show existed multiple times, despite watching the whole thing previously like 5 to 8 years ago. I don't remember if it was any good. It's the final Skylanders thing I need to talk about, but I don't want to watch it, so I'm not going to. Wait, no. Okay, so I have a few thoughts. Skylanders Academy opens with the first episode, Skylanders Unite, which is the only double-length episode in the series, aside from the two-parter finale. It introduces most of the main cast members: Eon, Spyro, Stealth Elf, Eruptor, Jetvac, Chaos, and Glumshanks. The other main character, Pop Fizz, is barely in this episode, and I completely forgot he was in it. Skylanders Unite basically sets up the premise for the show, with the end showing all the Skylanders becoming, well, Skylanders, and get the duty of protecting the realm. This episode was pretty boring, and weirdly set an expectation of what the series may be like by just having a meta opening, which nothing like that ever came up in the series again, so it was just weird. Yeah, the show is just boring overall, honestly. The first 2/3 of the season just left me absolutely bored. It's meant to be a comedy series according to Netflix. The only times I remember laughing in this a lot is at a joke in episode 3 and in episode 7, which is not a lot for a comedy series. A lot of the reason I found it boring was because I didn't have that much investment in any of the characters. For the main lead, we have Spyro, who's probably the mainest of all the main characters. He is introduced as a complete egotist who is completely full of himself, and honestly, was a little bit annoying. However, they actually gave him development in the first episode where he actually overcame his ego and actually develops as a character. It also doesn't feel too much like he's snarky and has some ego, but he controls it much better, which honestly is more realistic than if he completely changed personalities, and this development actually stays for the rest of the series, which is cool. It's also only like one of the only times significant character development stays consistent throughout the series. A lot of the time the character development, if significant, isn't followed up on, the character feels flanderized in the episode, or it's just inconsistent with how it appears. For example, in episode 7, Eruptor has to learn how to control his anger, and yet he felt flanderized. I never really noticed his anger being a thing or an issue beforehand, or him even getting that angry at all. And now he does something as simple as stub his toe, leg thing, and he gets so angry after that and 2 other seemingly minor things in a row, and just spews all over the sidewalk with lava. That's what he does. He never really did anything like this before, and it really doesn't feel like he went through any development at all. He just got flanderized and then got unflanderized. This wouldn't be as big of an issue if this wasn't a serialized show. Yeah, this show actually has continuity. In most episodes there are things happening which lead into future episodes. This first season doesn't really have an overarching plot, but there is continuity, and it is important to watch the show in order. Eruptor is alright as well as Spyro. I just never got attached to their characters. That also extends to Stealth Elf. These are sort of meant to be a trio of good friends, and while they are shown as friends and seem like it, they never really felt like really close and had a really strong connection between each other. Even after, when Stealth Elf said Spyro was her best friend, I wondered why he was. They just never really seemed that close or had any interaction making them feel like best friends. In other shows such as Gravity Falls and Star vs. Force of Evil, it was much easier to like the characters and care about their relationship. You could see how much they cared for each other despite whatever bickering or fighting might happen. I'm not expecting them to be like the best characters ever, but I would just like to have a bit more reason to show why they are close. Stealth Elf, despite getting the best episode of the season, is also just eh. She's voiced by Ashley Tisdale, who does Candace from Phineas and Ferb, and she does a good job with what she's given. I'm just not a fan of what she's given. I don't know, this just really doesn't feel like Stealth Elf compared to the brief bit I remember from the games. I much preferred how she was presented in Imaginators, a game I hate, as she seemed more like sly, cheeky, and had her voice I actually quite liked. I think it would have been cool to see that version presented in Imaginators, translated over. But no, we have a different version, and she's just as unremarkable as the other two. Honestly, aside from Spyro, I couldn't really give a personality to Eruptor and Stealth Elf from this first season. I could give a little bit to Stealth Elf admittedly, but it's not applicable to most scenarios. I will admit that I'm awful at figuring out personalities, but considering I could at least give a few traits to Spyro, and a few for most other shows, I feel like it could be better. Jetvac is sort of as well. He takes on a bit of a leader role in the team. He's alright in the first season. I don't really have that much more to say. Finally, Pop Fizz. Honestly, the only character out of all I kinda like in this first season. He's crazy but kinda smart, and honestly, I just kinda like that. He's just living as himself. He gets a pass. He could definitely be better, but it's a step up compared to the others in the main Skylanders group. They are all just kinda unremarkable and not anything I really got attached to, which is a bit of an issue, and the show isn't really that funny to compensate for lack of caring about the characters or interesting plots. There's only one episode in this first 8 which got me to care about the characters a bit more, and that is episode 4, Dream Girls. It actually explores Elf's character and shows how she's scared of public speaking and scared to take this TED talk, and her friend's encouragement on how great it would be stresses her out due to the risen expectations. All this ends up making her be sleep deprived, and I honestly really like this. The conclusion of aspects in the episode, such as the Dreamcatcher aspect, wasn't that bad either. There's still a lot of flaws, but it's one of the few episodes I actually did something interesting with their characters and followed through with it well. It made me like Stealth Elf a bit more as it gave her a bit more character, which was cool. There are other main characters, like 4 others with an extra 5 important side characters. Alright, so the primary villainous forces, then I'll trust on the rest when we move to Season 2. Firstly, Chaos, and he feels very similar to usual, but a lot less competent and more childish. He is still voiced by Stephen Richard Horowitz though, which, honestly, a lot of Chaos's appeal is in his performance. Honestly, Chaos is alright in this season, and for the most part, I like him better than the protagonist. In Glumshanks, I was initially not a big fan of Glumshanks. Felt like as if they changed him from being Glumshanks to just being depressed. However, as I watched on throughout the series, I honestly came to really like this interpretation of Glumshanks. He used to be a theatre kid, he had tons of stories from his past, he generally cares for Cassandra, Chaos' mother, who will be much more important later in the show. He has goals, he wants to go to college and get a degree, and despite working for evil incompetence personified, that's a mouthful, he is generally kind. He has a lot more to him that he continuously displays throughout the first 2 seasons, and I think that's why the main Skylanders are so underwhelming to me. They don't really show much outside of being Skylanders, while Glumshanks shows so much more than just being Chaos' servant. Finally, you have the Doom Raiders and Golden Queen. I'll touch on Doom Raiders more in the next season, but they're alright overall. Golden Queen is pretty similar to her in-game version, however, I find her performance a lot less threatening and not as good as the one from the games. She does have some good plans though, such as manipulating Chaos' attraction to her, which honestly, I despise. It's honestly tiring the first time it happens, but it gets really annoying very quickly. So the first season of the show was boring, uninteresting, and not that funny. However, the last third is honestly quite a big improvement. It's just funnier for the most part. Episode 9, despite being really weird, is actually quite funny. And honestly, this entire last third of the season is pretty good. Episode 10 generally has some pretty tense, emotional, and cool moments and introduces Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, he's here in the show, and I don't like him that much. Firstly, he's meant to be Australian, and yet he has a New Zealand accent.
Bandicoot, and I brought some good mates with me.
His gimmick is just he says extreme whenever he does something, and I just find him a little bit annoying. And unfortunately, it leaves to the only episode in this batch which isn't that good, as I just don't like him that much. And Spyro's fanboying of him is just a bit annoying and not overly funny. The overarching story plots are alright overall. I was rather uninterested mostly, and some could have been better executed. However, the finale where Chaos betrays his mother and teams up with Doom Raiders, honestly was pulled off pretty decently. I actually felt something a little bit. It also provides a really cool event where, after using Cassandra's Dark Relic Book to send Crash Bandicoot home and getting healed afterwards he gives it back to Cassandra, which is honestly incredibly intriguing, and despite the season's fumbling of a lot of interesting concepts, it got me quite intrigued into a true character, which does get expanded on in the next season. So overall, yeah, this season was pretty underwhelming. I wasn't that entertained throughout, and you want me to talk about the banana guy, don't you? Ugh. So, Dan TDM the Diamond Minecart is in the show, and in by far the worst episode of this season. It might be the worst episode in the entire series. He plays an Imaginator called Sai, and this episode made me want to die on the inside. No offense to Dan, but he just doesn't act that well in this show, and I hate his character. He spends a lot of the episode in it just making puns and jokes about catchphrases, and it just isn't funny. It just made me cringe really, which led me to wanting to die on the inside. And just the acknowledging of a catchphrase isn't that funny. I feel like a lot of the humor around him is like, ha ha, potato cannons, ha ha, he's a banana head at Hell City, and the puns, and it's just not funny. It genuinely annoys me when he's on screen, and it's so distracting because of how he's voiced by Dan TDM of all people. I don't even remember him playing Skylanders that much. Anyway, mostly boring season, 5 out of 10 next. This season released in October 2017. That's about 7 months after the final release of a Skylanders game. This season's actually a bit better than the first. It remains pretty consistently kind of funny throughout, which is honestly quite neat. It expands on Chaos's character more as he tries to take over Doom Raiders and then leaves them and goes back and actually makes amends with his mother, which is really nice to see. What he did to be able to get back home wasn't, which was by making Glumshanks get expelled from his college, which he's been attending for the past 7-ish episodes, which I didn't like. I just felt really bad for Glumshanks. However, I really do like what they did with Chaos here. His arc throughout the season is quite compelling, and it's just really nice to see what happens with him and his bond and care for his mother grow. Cassandra is also interesting, as it's revealed that she has been preventing an evil force from re-entering Skylands, and she's slowly becoming weaker due to Chaos draining her magic, albeit unintentionally by touching her butt. I'm not sure if it's specifically Chaos doing or if she's just getting weaker, but I honestly just really liked her in this season. I also really enjoyed seeing Glumshanks pursue in school and him coming to actually really like Chaos, despite him being the reason he got expelled, and just seeing the family be happy just made this show a lot more enjoyable to watch. They would be the highlight of the season if it wasn't for episode 3. Episode 3, Return to Cinder, stars Cinder, who was a major character in the Legend of Spyro trilogy. She comes to attempt to be a new cadet at Skylanders Academy, however, she has no idea what she is doing, so Spyro helps her train and their relationship's really nice to see. During a Skylander mission, which Cinder comes along with so that she can apply her training in a real scenario, Spyro gets fed up with Cinder's unwillingness to fight and the attempt to try and reconcile peacefully with the Greebles, which he deems as evil and views good and evil as a black and white, which Cinder gets upset with as it's revealed that she's a daughter of an evil dragon. And this is such a good conflict, despite a lot of flaws with the execution, as there is a lot of clunky dialogue.
I'm not like any of you!
I did really like this episode's portrayal of things not always being black and white, and it's honestly a really good message to give to kids. It was really cool, and I really did like Cinder as a character. She can make me cringe a bit with some of the lines, but it's sort of charming. She ends up passing the Skylander test after standing up to her father, which, after the episode, is really nice. Overall, a 7 out of 10 episode. Despite a lot of the preceding appearances, Cinder being a little bit off character, I do like her a lot, way more than any of the normal Skylanders. Anyway, at the end of the season, to try and save Spyro from her father, she is taken away by him and never seen until the penultimate episode, where she's got intuitive ability that was never elaborated on before. Yeah, that was a bit annoying. This season also adds a few more Skylanders, and which is much appreciated. But I wish there was more Skylanders overall, since there's such a vast cast of Skylanders, and very few are actually shown in the show, which makes Skylanders Academy feel really small, which despite the fact it's probably got to do with budget constraints, is a bit underwhelming, which is kind of like the fight scenes. The best action in the first 2 seasons is a 2-second bit in season 2, episode 12, which is honestly really good, has really nice anticipation staging throughline, it's all really nice, especially the impact. Most of the other action is just a bit weightless and often just a shot of someone attacking cut to a shot of them dodging. While the action is underwhelming, the regular talking animation is actually pretty good. No one is ever completely stationary, and they're always emoting with their entire bodies and with their character movements, which is cool. There's also a lot of effects and stuff which may be expensive, but I'm not sure. But you know who usually does the action? The core Skylanders team. And there only seems to be one Skylanders team for some reason. I don't know why, but for some reason the show makes you believe that there is lots of Skylanders. As such, there is a massive book, and obviously if you have protectors of the realm who have existed for a while, you wouldn't just have 5 protectors of a realm be the same for ages, but they just are. We don't ever see any other Skylanders team, and I don't think there is, which is really weird to me, because wouldn't they had to have a protector of the realms before? Who were they? Like, they do give like some really previous ones, but who are the ones directly before the current crew? Where have they gone? Why aren't they protecting anymore? Is it just luck that they all passed and they could be part of the Skylander crew? It's just a really weird decision to make. Like, I understand it from a budgetary standpoint, but it just feels really weird that these 5 are the only Skylanders who can do anything about evil in those whole entire Skylands. Now, the other characters I need to cover from season 1. I'm just gonna rapid fire the Doom Raiders a bit quickly. Dreamcatcher is alright and feels pretty similar to the games. Chef Pabjek is also alright and feels similar to the games. Wolfgang is weaker than the games, because here, he's actually voiced by Metallica, because I lied before, and I like his voice in the games a lot more. And despite the fact he's voiced by Metallica's lead singer, he doesn't actually do any singing or have a song composed by them, despite the musician, which is really weird because I kind of expected it as you went out of your way to get him to voice this musical-based character when you could have gotten any other actor if he's not actually going to sing. Chompy Mage has a more normal voice and is also okay, but I think I like him a bit better than the others due to feeling a little bit more crazy, but I do prefer the game version overall because he feels even more crazier and has a silly voice. And finally, Broccoli Guy. Honestly, he's definitely my favorite Doom Raider. I think I just kind of like him because he's meant to be a bit of a pathetic villain, but I don't know. I just like seeing him try, and he's just doing his best and being himself. He has a goofy voice compared to the others, and also has one of the funniest jokes in the series, if not the funniest. What other characters haven't I mentioned? Oh shoot, Eon! Eon is alive here, and he's alright. He's a more comedic take on Eon from the games, but he's alive, and yeah, he's alright. They have this running gag about his beard just being wacky, and I never really found it that funny, and a lot of the time, he doesn't really fit a wise mentor-like character, and just has a lot of interesting moments. I'm not sure how to describe it, but just doesn't really feel like it fit. But overall, he's fine throughout the entire show. The core Skylanders stay pretty much the same throughout the show. For the most part, nothing too interesting happens, with two exceptions. Firstly, Spyro becomes obsessed with learning about his ancestors and heritage, which is somewhat interesting, and the actual ending to that quest is devastating, and I actually felt bad for him, which sucked. I don't really want to feel bad for him, but it was good, but it did make me feel bad for him. The other interesting thing was with Jetvac. In the episode, I'm not gonna say it, and It Takes Two. They're both connected, and I have no clue if that's intentional or not. Basically, in the first episode, it's revealed that whenever Jetvac lays an egg, which is a joke that's been in the series for a while, whenever he's scared, he lays eggs, which isn't really that funny. Wait, he's a guy, and specifically called Birdman, and he can lay eggs? Anyway, it's revealed that he keeps his eggs and stores them on a wall as a reminder of how he's failed as a leader and has shown fear. Something his father greatly believed made someone a failure if they showed fear, especially as a leader. Honestly, this was a really great scene for the show. Later, the egg hatches and you have a destructive gremlin storyline, which is a bit annoying, but I like how Jetvac's mindset with how the child is an embodiment of his fears and how he feels like he needs to prove himself by raising it. There's a lot of great in this episode. Even the B story with Chaos wasn't that bad. Though, unfortunately, it did detract a bit from the Jetvac storyline, but it was a bit wholesome. Chaos wanted to hang up a nice picture of him and his mother to try and help amend their relationship. During it, he finds a planted image saying Glumshanks was his father, and there is a nice little montage. It's reversed by the end of the episode, but I do really like Chaos in this episode, and just his determination to fix his bond with Cassandra. Also, in this episode, the Skylanders contemplate how to stuff a baby into a sack and ditch it. That was really funny.
Great idea, Pop. You guys watch TV, we'll nab the baby.
What if he cries? Jetvac will hear.
So we'll put it in a sack.
A really thick sack? Sacks aren't soundproof.
So I'll turn up the volume really loud on the TV then.
What if he bites through the sack?
We'll have more sack.
In the other episode, It Takes Two, Jetvac and Sprocket end up at the core of light after all the technology in Skylanders is being funky, and he ends up laying eggs again, and when an Akin robot gets teleported there by accident due to the big magic technology threats, the only weapon they have are his eggs. They end up breaking, turning into magic dust, which ends up sending the Archean back and ends up winning the fight of Academy and fixes everything. I really like this in concept, as it's basically a conclusion to what started, where he's initially scared of showing fear, coming to accept it more, and then finally using and overcoming the fear to do something greater. I just think it was pretty nice. I honestly like Jetvac a lot more now due to this. Unfortunately though, the joke of Jetvac laying eggs wasn't retired, even though this would have been a good point to retire the joke. A couple final issues I have with this season is that things established don't really stick around. For example, Eruptor turns out to have really good investigative skills and he can pretty much stop time to pretty much figure stuff out. However, this never comes back into play, which would have been so incredibly useful in the next season, especially since they got around the way he couldn't use it due to the massive side effect and why he wasn't using it before. I'm not sure what it's called, but dehydration gun. Also, the use of the word powers constantly to describe people's abilities and things they can do is just really weird. It just sounds odd to consistently refer to their abilities and skills as powers. I just don't like how it refers to it in that way, and it just feels a bit weird. Anyway, the second season of the show is a great step up. It's only 6 out of 10, maybe 6.5. Yeah, despite the praise I gave it, a lot of the episodes are either just alright to not that good. They even made one where Dan TDM returns and it wasn't bad instead of just being bad. It was a little bit annoying though, because it would have been much better without him. I know I'm being a bit mean to him, and it would have been really cool to be in a show, but I just don't like the character he's given. Anyway, maybe the next season might be a step up. So Spyro turns evil. The last season ends with the evilest guy ever, Strykor, returning. Spyro having the light sucked out of him, Chaos figuring out how Cassandra has been keeping his dad locked up in another dimension or something, and begins with Eon telling how Cassandra, Strykor, and himself are related, and to me, pretty much confirming Eon was actually Chaos' father after Strykor had claimed that he was mainly just to get out of his prison, which I was correct on. This season was just kind of whatever again. Excluding the finale, which I'll go over soon, there were only 2 episodes in this entire batch which were kinda fun. Road Rage and 3 Sides to Every Story. They both have some bits which were just kind of fun, and 3 Sides decided to do something a bit different with its presentation, which was kinda neat. Most of the episodes though are unremarkable, boring, or both. And this show does a thing I really dislike, where a character who is trying to be undercover and not let people know, make it really obvious that there's something going on. Spyro, so many times, would just say things that would easily blow his cover. Like, Dark Spyro, he's right next to you. Why are you saying things? I don't think he's deaf, he can hear you. But he just doesn't hear you. Also, Dark Spyro's voice sounds familiar. Who voices him? Dipper Pines? Anyway, this just generally sucks and makes everything feel tenseless. Also, Strykor. What the hell is he doing this entire season? A long time has passed since he returned throughout the series. And yet, the only thing it feels like he actually does for the first 11 episodes is make a machine to clone Glumshanks, which adds nothing to the plot at all. When they're actually in threat and the Glumshanks could do something, they just ran away. Why am I meant to be scared of him when he seems so lazy that Spyro is all the influence he actually has onto Skyland? I got so disinterested during this season, where I got distracted on my phone during an episode, which never happened in the previous 2. Anyway, the finale and the, for some reason, massive uptick in the action in this show. What? Why does episode 11 and 13 actually have some of the really good action shots? It's confusing. Like, I appreciate it, and in episode 13 it makes sense, even though it's a single scene and the rest is kind of the same as the rest of the series. It just feels really weird. Why wasn't more effort given to the rest of the action in this show? The finale, while I wasn't a big fan, I'd be lying if I said it was a bad finale. It sort of ties off most loose ends for the series, and if I was more invested in the show, I can actually imagine it being quite cool and climactic. Like, I genuinely went, that's so cool! When the Archean Fist summoned the Conkertron, and there's a lot of stuff such as Eon's sacrifice in the fight against Strykor and the reveal of Eon being the father all along, being more impactful if I cared. The only thing that definitely would have been better is if they didn't have jokes during the moments that are meant to be impactful and somber, which actually kind of hit me. I didn't cry, but I did feel a bit, oh, that's sad. I don't know how to describe it, sorry. It was a good finale, which I just wasn't that interested in. So, that's everything Skylanders covered. Or at least everything major enough. All the mobile games are dead, so that's that possibility gone. I feel like I'm missing something. Oh yeah, Snuggles was in this show.
Duh, that's why we bought tickets. Here, have one. It's way more fun to unfairly judge music together.